At this time, we will call the November 16, 2016 Walton County Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting to order. If you would, please stand as we have our invocation followed by the pledge of allegiance. Do you want to do the invocation?
Sure, certainly could.
Right again. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here tonight as free Americans to participate in the privileges that we have, the liberties that we have. Lord, direct us to, as a board, to make decisions fairly and with due process always in mind. We thank you, Lord, again for the privilege to live in this great country of ours. For this, pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'd like to thank the board members here tonight. I understand Scott is not with us. Mr. John Dixon is a new appointee that is not with us tonight. We do have a new member that is with us, took Martin Miller's position. He resigned back in, I think, May. Mr. Philip Anderson, we do appreciate you recognizing the importance of serving on a citizen board. We feel like we have the most important board in the county. We do appreciate and look forward to your participation. We appreciate the planning department staff for Mr. Dice letting everybody know so we have something to do. We thank Carrie, the other staff members for being here tonight, and also our attorney, Mr. Dykes. Do we have any announcements that need to be made on our appeals?
No, we do have pending appeals, but no decisions made at this point. So they're
Judge has been appointed.
Yes, we have Judge Santuri. He'll be retiring, I believe, in December 1, and then the new judge, Judge Lewis, will assume those cases. One of them has been briefed by the parties. There was an error in the record, so we're going to revise the county's brief, and then that'll give the appellant the opportunity to prepare their brief, and then we have one that'll be due end of this week that will also be final. So, but no rulings on any of them.
Who's the new judge?
Judge Lewis.
Who is? I mean, where is
He was conflict counsel for the Northwest region, and so he was a recent appointee by the governor, okay. And so he didn't run in the election or anything like that. He was an appointee, and Judge Santuri is actually retiring, right. So he'll be assuming that. I believe Mark and I were talking about it. I think it's December 1 is when that'll happen.
Good deal. We give each and every one here the opportunity to speak before this board. We ask that if you anticipate speaking before this board, please stand, raise your right hand, and swear that the testimony that you give will be the truth. If you're going to speak before the board, stand and raise your right hand and be sworn.
Thank you, sir. Do you all swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Mr. Dice, you want to address the first item number 3, I believe?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we have one request to continue. That's number 3, the Walton Apartments appeal. We have a request to continue until the next ZBA meeting, which is December 14th, 2016, at 6 p.m. at this location.
And I was going to add, I believe we've heard both from the appellant who requested the appeal as well as the property owner. So both sides have asked for the continuance.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pardon?
Say, state the names for her. Motion and
Motion.
second.
Bill.
I made the motion.
Tony.
Second.
I'm not doing too well, I'm okay. I'll catch on. First item before us tonight is the Robert Judith Bozine variance is being submitted by the petitioner. Would you please come up? State your name for the record.
Thomas Basilla.
Pardon me?
Thomas Basilla.
Okay. Spell your last name.
Is B as in boy, A-S-S-I-L-L-O.
Explain your variance request for us.
I am here today because I have recently purchased the house of Robert and Judith Elysian, and they have a variance for a sunroom that was added on the back of the house. I purchased the house or put my bid in on the house back in October, and it wasn't until about 2 weeks after that we found out that there was a variance on it, and it was all supposed to be settled on the 19th, is what we were told. The 20th was the date, October 20th is when we were closing, and that would have either, it had closed, we were gonna purchase the house to begin, or continue with the buying of the house, and if it wasn't gonna go through, or if the variance got denied, we were going to rescind our offer on the house, with the board not getting together a meeting and it being pushed another month. With me moving down here on military orders, we really didn't have enough time to come back down and look for a house again, look for a place to get settled without it impeding my time to get down here.
Okay. Obviously, we're supposed to have heard this variance in October, and the meeting was continued to tonight, and therefore we did not have it. He had a contract to purchase it. Did you say you already purchased the house, or you still?
Sorry.
Hold on. It's usually that cord, and not the actual microphone, but the cord that goes to the microphone.
We'll handle it delicately.
Have you purchased the house?
I had.
Do we have a legal issue here with it being in a different name, the variance as far as being?
Yeah, you would. I believe you have in front of you, Mr. Chairman, item number 1, the application.
Right, this is, so was it advertised in his name?
That I don't know.
Was it
Do we know if it was-
advertised in Mr. Brazello's name?
It was, Mr. Chairman, I believe this has been, as you mentioned before, it's been going on for a while because we had to cancel our meeting and the internet bought it. Advertising has not changed, I don't believe, although we have I believe the owners have consented to this, obviously they sold the property to them. I believe the ad was still in the old owner's name, I believe. Although we have an application where they have signed on to the application, basically.
Right. So that'll be a determination for the board to, if you're going to force re-advertisement. I believe staff's position is that we can proceed forward.
Yes, sir. We feel like, I think it's our position that since they have signed on to the application, basically as a co-signer on the application, so to speak, we have no objection to that, and if there's a legal problem, we're not opposed to it.
Do we have a legal issue here because it was not advertised, or?
No, I believe it was advertised. I think the issue would
I'm
be.
talking about if you have a property and if it's advertised in one name and they come up in another name, is that property advertised? Because I think we ran into this before to where, it wasn't property advertised. I just want a legal opinion.
Yeah.
Was it property advertised, or do they need to re-advertise?
No,
Mr. Chairman, I can also clarify too, nothing has changed in the request. The request is exactly the same. The only thing that's different is that the property has been transferred to another party. But the same request for the variance is the same.
yeah.
It's your legal opinion that we can go ahead and hear this without
Yes, sir.
jeopardizing their variance after we approve it. If somebody comes up and files an appeal, you're going to defend it on the advice that you've given us tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The reason for that is the due process. So.
Yes, sir. Okay, so you bought the house and you're down the military and they were supposed to have the variance, and now then you ask them for the variance. Explain the variance for us.
Variance is requiring the structures to be set back from the rear property line a minimum of 15 feet, and I am requesting that the approval adjust the county setbacks on the lot from 15 feet to 12 and a half feet.
So you're asking for a 3-foot variance on the rear.
2.4.
What is the estimate?
2.4 in the,
2.4. You asked for 2.4 feet on the rear, right?
Yes, sir.
This is item number 1. We have any drawings of it?
I think there is.
there's some pictures in the back.
You lot number 5? If you buy lot number 5, is that, am I looking at the right one?
Yes, that is it.
It's a porch that's in the setback.
That's right, sir.
You go back to the last page.
What do you do in the military?
Explosive ordnance disposal technician.
You what?
Explosive ordnance disposal.
Tony, you understand what he's asking for?
I do.
Philip?
Yes, sir, I do.
Phil?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do. If this isn't approved, they have to tear that down?
Yes. You got title insurance on it?
Excuse me?
Did you get title insurance on it? Yeah.
Yes.
There was no exceptions to the policy agenda this request?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, we'll give you the opportunity to come back. We're gonna ask staff about it, see how they feel about it. And we'll talk to you before we quit.
Gentlemen,
Pardon me?
I said thank you.
Yes, sir. We appreciate you coming. Just sit down, we'll get you back up here in a minute. You look like an attorney. Are you with the staff or are you their legal counsel?
Yes, that's the master layout.
When did you join the staff?
Almost 7 months ago.
And we have all kinds of new members around here, don't we?
Been hiding for the past 7 months.
I believe you have.
They don't let me out.
The stack of paper at the front of
His
his
desk
desk
has finally gotten down low enough that we can see him now.
Okay. Go ahead and tell us what you think.
Sort of give you a little background history. The previous property owners approached me that in very early October that they were in the process of selling. They were advised when they built the add-on, it's not the deck, it's an actually bump out of the house. When they added on, the couple was advised that they needed to get a variance first. They didn't. They came back in, the real estate agent told them this is gonna be an issue for the VA loan. We had it scheduled to go in the October, but unfortunately the meeting was canceled. So we would have time to, if it was approved, do it before the closing. The applicant is, the new homeowners come in wanting to make sure they start off on the right foot in the community and be in compliance if the variance is granted. Basically, the rear setback is the 15 feet. They're requesting the rear setback be reduced to 12.6 feet. And I have included views from both sides, the view facing the house and the view facing away from the house.
The thing, the thing that really concerns me, did I hear you correctly when you said they were aware that they built in setback before they built the structure?
The previous homeowners,
The
yes.
previous homeowners did.
Not the current homeowners.
So it's kind of intentional they did it. Did they get a building permit when they built it?
We were unable to determine if they actually, the only building permit we could find at the time was for the actual slab.
What year did this construction of this project occur whenever it was built in the setback?
I believe it was 2012.
2012?
Yes, sir.
It's always a concern when the citizens know they're doing something wrong and they don't come and ask us.
I I agree, and I told the prior applicants that it's better to come in first, do it first and do it. But however, they were an older couple, they were needing to go into a care facility. So the house was already in contract when they approached us. And now the current owners is trying to make the property right so they can start off.
And we appreciate that. Again, why did our meeting get canceled in October and we couldn't hear this?
Quorum? No quorum?
Really?
None. Yes, sir.
So it's our fault, not y'all's fault. So that changes things a little bit.
There's a paper here.
Anybody has any questions? Tony?
No, sir, I don't.
Bill?
No, sir.
Charlie?
Not on any questions or with that little document there.
You got an issue?
What is that?
It was the notice.
It's a March 6, 2012 letter from Titan Sunrooms.
Yeah. It would be just before the pictures.
It appears the letter was to the Bosenheims advising them that they might need to seek a variance request prior to the sunroom being built.
And the former property owners acknowledged, what they told me was that they were given that letter, told that they needed a variance. At that time, supposedly they asked the builder what the builder would do, and supposedly the builder said, build it. But
Who was the builder?
The,
Titan Sunrooms?
yes, sir.
I sure wish we could have heard this in October, because I can assure you there would have been a different outcome, in my opinion. I'm not going to take and cause this couple a hardship, but anytime I think that we have a letter and people do not, then I think that we have a major issue. And if we continue to do this, then there's no reason for them to come and ask.
I
If
agree.
they came in October, I think we probably could got a discount on their house for them. I'm pretty sure it would have been recommended.
And I agree, Mr. Chairman, and I really struggled when I was helping them with their application, saying, you're telling me that you were advised and you went ahead. That's not how it works. However, they're out of the picture, and now we got his young couple.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else has any issues, comments, concerns? You wanna come back and add anything, or you wanna say anything? Do you wanna say we could have saved you $20,000, and you wish you had waited?
That's all true, but I just appreciate you guys hearing this, and thanks for having me.
Well, we appreciate you coming before us and straightening us out. There again, I wish the other owners was here before us. I really do. But that's all. Thank you. May be seated. Motion to close public discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Charlie second. Bill first and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Bill made the motion.
Second.
Charlie second. Tony? Discussion? No discussion?
No.
Aye.
How do you vote, Charlie?
To approve, aye.
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 Bill? Philip?
Aye.
You received your variance request. We appreciate you doing things right. Thanks for coming for us. Good
Appreciate
luck
your
to
service.
you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
No, sir.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
You too.
You too.
Got caught in the middle.
Well, that's why we need to have two people. But we didn't have two members last time, did we? We was two members short.
Yeah. Yes, sir, that's correct.
Second item on the agenda. Schilling Spirits. Emerald Coast Associates, Mr. Burgess.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dean Burgess. I'm with Emerald Coast Associates, BURGIS, and I have been sworn. I'm here to represent the Schilling request for variance. I've got a packet I'd like to hand out. Most of these materials are already in your books, but it may help. The items that I wanted to discuss are in order here, so that may be helpful for you. That's these ones.
How many copies?
There's enough for the board plus extra if you need one for the record.
Yeah, we'll need one for the record for sure.
That's your next.
If you're, I can't go on vacation.
We're gonna count it Exhibit A.
If that's what the board wants to designate it as. Petitioner's Exhibit A.
And just to, while you're passing those out, familiarize you with the property. The property's located on West Hewitt. If you're familiar with West Hewitt, it runs north-south, takes a hard right as you get near the bay. And this is the lot that we're discussing tonight. And it's hard to see on this aerial, but I thought perhaps it may help to orient folks on this. This little building here is the shed that we're discussing the setbacks on today. It's hard to see, it's kind of covered with trees, but it is currently located 5 feet off of the property line. And what they'd like to do is tear the shed down because it's in poor repair and simply build it back on the same slab and foundation that it's currently on. Our presentation is basically two parts. The first thing I'd like to go through in the packet is property appraiser's records of the property. And you can see the shed was built in 2008 along with the house. It was built along with the existing house on the property. I've highlighted 2008 for the following reason. If we turn to the section of the code that I've copied, you'll see I've highlighted in yellow a portion of the code, and at the bottom I've highlighted in pink that it's from our current 2012 code that was adopted. And this speaks to what the setback requirement is, and it's my position based on this that we really don't need a variance. The code reads non-conformance. All non-conforming undeveloped residential lots, platted or unplatted, prior to June 1975, when this lot was, if you look at the first 2 pages, it's a meets and bounds description. So it was in existence, not part of a larger subdivision, so it was in existence prior to 1975. It says they may be developed with a minimum 5-foot side setback, period. I've also included on the next page a copy of the code from 2001. I went to my archives of codes. And the non-conformance section under the setback section reads the same way. Not all non-conforming undeveloped residential lots, platted or unplatted prior to June 1975, may be developed with a minimum 5-foot side setback. Now, I know it's been staff's position that if you go back to the 1975 code, it defined those restrictions as applying to lots of 10,000 square feet or less. But this code doesn't stipulate that, nor does it say as referenced in the 1975 code. It's not referenced, or direct the reader to go to the 1975 code and see what the conditions and stipulations were.
So what's a non-conforming lot? Sorry, Joe.
Go ahead.
So what's a non-conforming lot?
Yes.
A non-conforming lot is not defined in our code. I looked in the definition section. There's not a definition for non-conforming lot.
Now, why do you think this is a non-conforming lot?
We're left to read what's in the code currently.
So am I understanding you correctly that any lot that is not lot of record as far as a platted subdivision, if it has a meets and bounds prior to 1975, it is a non-conforming lot?
Yes, and it meets the criteria for a 5-foot setback.
Do you really believe that?
I do. There's nothing else in the code to direct you to do otherwise.
How big a lot is it?
This is a 2.5 acre lot.
This is a 2.5 acre lot,
Correct.
and you're calling this lot a non-conforming lot.
There's not a definition for non-conforming lot.
Do you have legal statutes that he can use to defend this?
I don't, other than what's in the code.
What's in the code?
Yes.
Okay? Go
Now,
ahead.
what I've, the next section of the package I've included are just some photos that are also in your package, maybe a little larger than what you have, that illustrate the shed. The next one, you can see the house structure and the existing shed structure. And clearly the materials of construction are different. The picture after that illustrates the side of the shed is rotten. It does need to be replaced. It's got holes in it, it's rotten, it's in need of repair. Part two of this, of my presentation is if we are wrong in our determination of the 5-foot setback applying. There was a building permit issued. The shed was built in 2008 to a 5-foot setback. I would appeal to the board to allow us to build in compliance with that existing 5-foot setback as it was permitted in 2008. The hardship being that the foundation's there. It would be a shame to tear out the foundation just to move 2.5 feet. And I really don't see that there's cause or need to do that.
He has 2.5 acres. There was a building permit in 2008 to build this 12 by, how large is it? 12 by 15?
Roughly 10 by 15, 12 by 15, yes, sir.
And it's 2 feet over the setback. Is that correct? You asking, well, you're not asking for a variance, you just, is this a variance request or a determination of the planning department's interpretation of non-conforming lot?
My part one is my position that it does not require a variance, and it's a request to the board to resolve our
So you have two
debate with
requests.
staff on the way. the
Mr.
code
Chairman,
is.
this board doesn't have the ability to establish definitions for the code. I mean, you have three duties, yeah.
We're gonna talk to them about it.
What I'm getting at is, I guess, for the petitioner's sake, this board can only hear variance requests. You know, you're not,
There are some lots that my determination does meet the non-conforming lots. Now, is this, and, we can take that into consideration as far as making a determination on this lot.
Right, for the variance
There are
request.
some lots, and I think that the planning department will establish, will agree that there are some lots meet that non-conforming, and this board has the right to hear that, say, yes, it is a non-conforming lot, and therefore we feel that it is, if it meets it. We do have that right to make that determination.
right, but your only determination will be to determine whether a variance request will be granted or not granted. That's the extent of it. You can consider those facts.
That's what I was trying to
Yeah,
get to.
you can consider those
I mean,
facts.
He has 2 items here, and that's why I asked him. Is he, are we here to determine the interpretation of the planning department, or are we here to determine the
Yeah,
variance?
because that sounds like a different issue. If we're appealing the director's
Right.
opinion that this is a non-conforming lot, that's a different application, that's a whole
Right,
different.
and what I'm saying, what you have before you tonight on the agenda is a variance request.
And that's what we're getting
Right.
to. Thank you. Go ahead with it.
Basically, that's my presentation. Come before the board.
So basically, it's your presentation that because in your interpretation, this is a non-conforming lot, that you're thinking that we should grant the variance because of that, and you're asking for a variance request.
That's correct.
Okay,
I had a question.
yes.
You're not changing the size in any way, so is it taller or any, I mean,
Exact same height
yeah,
and length. It's the exact same size shed. It's
Yeah.
going to be much more appealing to the eye.
yeah, I mean, it would not be easier just to put new siding around it and maybe fix some wood rot here and there? and-
That's the condition that thing's in.
Yeah, okay,
Now, the
It's in bad shape?
studs are,
Okay.
it needs to be leveled down to the slab to do it right.
okay.
Now, you could also, I have a question, you could also build it by keeping this, I mean, is keeping the slab that encroaches into the setback, or is it because you want to build vertical to the edge of the slab? If you move the wall over 2 feet and just had a smaller shed, would that comply with the building requirements?
No, because the slab is still there.
But slab
So
the slab is not vertical. He can have a slab there. He
That's what I'm saying. If you had
He just can't go
pavers
vertical.
out there, you wouldn't say you're not allowed pavers. What I'm saying is if you build vertical walls, that's when you becomes
Except for
an
a
issue.
pool deck.
Right, or a pool deck or
Pool
something
deck
like
is the
that.
only exception, which I.
So my question is, and it may be more appropriate for staff, is if they move the wall over 2 feet to get outside of the setback, they could leave the slab there, but they would just have a little edge that stuck out into the setback. Would that be a correct statement?
I don't think we have any objection to that.
Yeah, I'm not asking if there's an objection. I'm just saying, would that comply with the land development code and building code?
I believe it would.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Basically, as was presented by the applicant, was we don't disagree with the first interpretation of the 1975. However, we disagree because there's a two-pronged rule in effect. It's 10,000 square feet lot size and the 1975. So we agree with the 1975, but the 10,000 square foot lot is what made it. And as you see in my staff report, that's what kicked out the being recommended for, either just a straight recommend for approval of the variances. It doesn't meet that 10,000. It's both have to come into play. And his lot is much larger than 10,000.
You say to be a non-conforming lot, it's gotta be less than 10,000 feet prior to 1975.
Correct.
And that's the definition that the county goes by.
Correct, that is what the policy has been.
Right.
Is it a written policy that's recorded?
Yes, it is. It's in the, I'm pretty sure it is.
I'm researching what non-conforming means, as over the years as we've tried to interpret this. We go back to the 1975 subdivision regulations, which had a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet.
In 1975.
In 1975, and the other prong on this is it has to have existed prior to 1975.
But isn't it in, somewhere, isn't it a definition of non-conforming in the comprehensive plan, the land development code somewhere of 10,000 or less?
That number does not appear in the comprehensive plan or the land development code.
Has it ever appeared in it?
Not to my knowledge. When the 93 comprehensive plan was adopted, it was adopted without the minimum lot size. Unified Land Development Code did not have a minimum lot size, which was adopted in Ordinance 91-4.
Seemed like I seen it somewhere, because I ran across this before.
But that's what we always go back to, the regulations in effect in 1975, because this has to predate 1975.
Is that policy to refer to previous documents recorded anywhere? Is that written?
But I don't know that it is.
It has to be a lot of record in 1975.
Right.
Well, I mean, in terms of this policy of looking back at just somewhere and to have something to reference so that individuals would know if we do not have this defined, we refer back to what was in place at that time.
And we frequently go back in time to figure out exactly what the rules were at the time the law was created, or a house was constructed, or.
Yeah, I understand that, it's just, it happens and it's what's done, but is it policy or
Is it
procedures?
codified in the comp plan or land development code? I don't believe that it is.
Very good.
But that has been the policy that we have used on a daily basis, at least for the 9 years I've been here.
Go ahead with your presentation.
So as I said, we agree with the 1975, we just disagree with the size of the lot. staff concurs that it would be a hardship to tear down it and rebuild. There are letters of objection in your packet, so I'm not sure if any of them came here to actually speak today, but that is pretty much our stance, is that they would need the variance to build it, to maintain the 5-foot side yard setback.
The staff has no problem as far as a hardship. They feel like it's a hardship. They have no problem with it, but you would ask them us to grant the variance. That's the staff position.
Yes, sir.
But we do have opposition from the neighbors,
Yes, sir.
the adjoining neighbors.
I'm not sure if they're adjoining. And when they called, they were notified that the meeting was changed tonight, so they would have known that the meeting was moved. And I also believe the sign date was changed.
So the hardship that staff believes is in play is if they would have to tear out the foundation, because it sounds like they're going to raise the structure anyway due to its condition, correct?
Correct, yes, sir.
So if they were allowed to leave the foundation but required to build,
Over.
offset it to where they lose approximately 2 feet on that side.
Although
Would that-
the staff is free to do that.
Well,
No, I'm asking them if they believe that's a hardship.
Well, I don't think that, at least speaking for, I don't believe that would cause a hardship. I don't think that's an unacceptable request.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome,
Is
sir.
there anyone in here who'd like to speak in regards to this? Anyone else? Mr. Burgess?
Again, we'd ask the board to, in light of the ambiguity of the 1975 5-foot setback, I honestly believe that this shed was permitted through the building department with a 5-foot setback consciously by the building department, and in 2008, and it should be allowed to be built in the same footprint that it currently occupies. Something that I'm concerned about is, I'm sure this is a turn down slab, and Tony, you're probably familiar with this. If we moved that wall of the shed over, it's no longer on a turn down slab. It's no longer on the footing. It's bearing on a portion of the slab that's not the footing. There's probably not a large load there, but I'm not a structural engineer. But it may not be as simple as just moving over 2 feet and everything's fine. We may have a problem with the foundation.
They have plenty of room to build otherwise, don't they?
Excuse me?
They have 2.5 acres. They have plenty of room to rebuild at another location, right?
Well, with the layout of the house, you can see that the orientation of the shed is already relatively close to the house. It would more than likely cause them to either pinch it closer to the house than they'd like, or find another location for it. And again, in light of the fact that I think it truthfully was properly permitted in 2008, they simply want to put it back, whether we look at it as a not requiring a variance because we already meet the code, or whether we look at it as, okay, we need to legitimately request a variance. I think both are substantiated and supported and reasonable to ask of this board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to close the public discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. I see an eyesore on a property owner's site. He wants to improve it, and I think that's a good idea.
I'll second. Get discussion.
Discussion.
The only thing that struck me is that it was permitted prior with 5-foot setback. That's the only thing that's holding me back and tearing it down. Foundation costs in this type of structure is minimal. I really don't see a hardship when it comes to that at all. I'm not even sure if it is turned down, it may or may not be. These sheds can be pretty haphazardly assembled, so it's hard to say. Can't say I haven't been out there. But I don't see a considerable hardship, given that it's being torn down to begin with. I don't buy on the interpretation of not conforming. We've all used it, we've all been looking at it. It always bothers me when those things aren't, there's not a clear procedure that's written that people can follow. That does bother me. But there's a long history and it's very familiar, that's very common practice to follow that rule in particular in terms of defining that non-conforming lot size requirement. So I just don't see a true hardship, but I do have some concerns.
Bill?
No comments?
Huh?
No discussion.
Bill?
I'm through.
I think there's, or do you want to go?
Go ahead.
So I think there's some hardship. I mean, like if you got a slab that he was there, he's used to seeing it there all the time. It's been there. You're gonna have to tear the slab up and move it to a different spot or do something completely different. Because all he wants to do is put a building back that's already there. If he was to just really get determined, I'm sure he could fix the actual building without actually turning it out. Tear down, 3 feet, put it back, turn down 3 feet, put it back, turn down 3 feet, put it back. And then you could go through a bunch of hoops and do it if you just got terribly determined. It would be easier if you just tore it down, put it back.
Leave it there 2 more years and it'll be gone anyway, it looks
Yeah.
like.
I would say there was an argument for a hardship anyway. If it's permitted and was there, then you'd stand a reason you could put it back. If it burned down or something like that, you'd want to put it back, I would think.
Sure, but things that have been legally permitted and correctly permitted in the past become non-conforming as
Yeah.
use change and uses change. And the intent is for those things to not be permitted to be rebuilt as they deteriorate beyond a certain point and beyond a certain percentage of their current state, because we don't want continued non-conformities to exist. So I understand, and yes, they probably can patch their way through it until someone complains. But that isn't really the intent of the code.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you ever find the letters of opposition?
No.
I can never find those in my package.
You didn't find the letters of opposition?
I didn't see anybody objecting.
They said letters
Did you
of
ask if
opposition.
there's anybody here?
Yeah, I asked them. So it's your belief that because it was permitted in 2012, when the...
8.
When? 2008.
That gives me pause. That gives me concerns as to whether there was a
2 or 1.
mistake or whether it was actually permitted.
That's when the house was built, isn't that his testimony?
That's when the house was built, fireplace, fence, lots of it was built. But again, these sheds sometimes have the habit of popping up and not being necessarily permitted. But I don't know that, that's not something I can
Did you read it?
And just so the petitioner and the public know, these are the 2 letters that we've got in opposition.
It's 1.5 feet, I guess is what we're changing it. 2.5 feet. 7.5 to 5.
Pass them out of that one before we vote.
Has the board closed comment?
Yes.
Okay.
It appears to me that they built a 95 house in 2008, and that shed, you honestly think it was built in 2008?
It rotted a lot for, I mean, nobody been there longer than that. About 8 years, it ate the side off it.
But it's not the same structure. You pass it down?
Yeah, they bring
Yeah, I read it.
I think I've already seen them, and I've spoken when I was going to interject, because I've spoken with these folks via telephone.
That's fine. We just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to see what the board was seeing.
Can you be, are we taking the position that it was not permitted or permitted
No,
originally?
we're not taking that position.
Okay,
I mean, you know, I think it's testimony that it's permitted.
yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
we don't have a permit, so, you know, we just have to listen to what has been presented. I'm just saying that there's a big difference in the structure of the house and the structure of the building, which leads me to believe it was there before. Not that it's, you know, one way or the other. Don't explain the non-conforming structures.
See that?
One example is in Grayton, the Red Barn, for instance. It is a structure that has been there for a long time. It has crept into all the setbacks over time before those changes had occurred. When the code changed, the structure was existing. It's allowed to remain as if it continues in that use. If it ever shut down for more than a year, then it could no longer return to that use. It's not required to be demolished, not required to be removed. However, no expansion can occur, and if damaged beyond 50% of its value for building code, I believe, it would have to be, at that point, either torn down or go through a full development or process to be continued in that state. Similarly, a project or house that had encroached into the setbacks without seeking variances from this board would be considered a non-conformance, and no expansion can occur adjacent to that portion. They can expand other portions of the house, but not that portion. It's not that they're necessarily going to be required to tear anything down. However, they could not make substantial modifications or improvements to that portion without a variance.
We have a motion to approve, we have a second. Tony, how you vote?
Nay.
Bill?
In favor?
Bill?
Aye.
Sherman?
Aye.
Nay. I'm gonna vote no on this one.
Thank you, members of the board.
Next item on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, just so for the record, because not 4 members voted in favor of the variance, it did fail. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Everyday phase 2A.
It's not taking on just the number of
No, sir.
board members present.
Our code provides that to take an official action, minimum of 4 board members must vote in the affirmative. and because only three members voted in the affirmative, your variance request failed or was denied.
Next item on the agenda is Emerald Bay Phase 2 variance. Blueberry. State your name for the record, please.
Good evening, my name is Cliff Nauer, Knauer. I'm Vice President of Dewberry Preble Rish, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. If I could just give you guys just a little bit of background on our request. Super thankful that I'm not here to tell you that we have built anything in a setback. We kind of picked up the pieces of this project for Seascape. It was built in 2007. The roads were constructed, utilities placed, water, sewer, lift station, the whole 9 yards. And due to the economy in 2007, the project sat basically on hold until earlier this year. The developer decided it was time to finish the project and get all the certifications from DEP and so forth and get it platted so that he can move forward with developing lots. And so that was kind of our role in trying to get this project moving forward. We did prepare and present a plat that was approved by the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. The plat that we got approved is for 7.5 foot side setbacks. The covenants and restrictions for the subdivision in this Block A that are part of the DRI, this is a DRI, and so this Block A in the DRI, the covenants and restrictions allow for a 5 foot side setback and a 5 foot rear setback for pool and pool deck only. And so there's other restrictions. You can't have a screened in pool, for example, within that 5 feet. It can only be a pool or pool deck. And so our request before you today is to ask for 5 foot setbacks instead of 7.5 foot setbacks and side setbacks, and then to ask for a 5 foot rear pool setback, no structures of any sort other than a 5 foot pool setback as outlined in the covenants and restrictions for this block for Phase 2A. And so that's essentially what our request is. And many of the houses in Emerald Bay that exist today are built with 5 foot side setbacks, 5 foot rear pool setback as well. And so we provided a list of those with our application. And so I don't know if there's an aerial in your package or not, but I brought an aerial so that you can see exactly where this is in relation to everything else. I thought it might be helpful.
How many acres is in question total?
4.5, isn't it?
4.5 acres?
Yes, sir. This is the plat of it right here.
Yeah, 4.5 acres, and you wanted to put how many there? How many houses you want to put? Or lots?
There's 23 in Phase 2A. This plat's already been approved. It's already been approved.
A lot, okay, some have been approved.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're not asking for you to approve lots, subdivision, any of that.
It's been approved as what?
As a 23 lot subdivision.
With 7.5 setback or
7.5 foot.
Or 7.5 foot?
Yes, sir. And a 15 foot rear setback.
And you want us to reduce the side setback to 5
Yes, sir.
and the rear 15 still?
No, sir.
What you asking for the rear?
The rear would remain 15 for any type of structure other than a pool or a pool deck, which is what the covenants and restrictions allow.
And you asking for what on that, 5?
Yes, sir, 5 foot.
And that's in the restrictions?
Yes, sir.
It was approved.
Yes, sir.
When was it approved?
Which part of it approved?
This subdivision.
The subdivision?
Yeah, when was
Prior
that?
to 2007, probably 2006, I would guess.
2004 was the development order application, I believe it was approved in '05.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't involved in that part of it, so I don't know those timelines too well.
The plat was approved, the restrictions was approved.
91. First page.
Yeah, the restrictions are from when the DRI was done, I believe.
It says 91.
Since what?
91.
Any questions?
Well, you don't need a variance for the setback if it's a pool on the rear, right?
Well, we do because the current code reads that there's no structure of any sort allowed, and I believe they consider a pool a structure right now, I believe.
Oh.
And so I think,
They explicitly mentioned pool.
yes, sir. So I believe that we do. And so the developer is trying to make this match the rest of the subdivision and to match the covenants and restrictions that have been adopted as part of the DRI.
The other lots in that subdivision is 5-foot setbacks on the side.
Well, when the covenants and restrictions were put together, the setbacks were laid out for all the different blocks in the subdivision. And so Block A, which is what this is part of, was laid out with 5-foot side setbacks and a 5-foot rear setback for pools only, 15-foot for structures.
But those are just what the developer wanted. That's not what the county had in place.
Those are,
They adopted it in the restrictions.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but that's not the county adopting it. That's the developer and the landowners who adopt
If
that.
the subdivision was adopted by the county adopted it.
Right. He said that subdivision, the part that he's asking for the variance for, was adopted with 7.5-foot setbacks as well as 15. Otherwise, he would not be here asking for a variance.
Yeah, and I can explain that further if you'd like, if it'd be helpful to you. Really, the only way to get around or to have something other than 7.5-foot setbacks is to go through a PUD to have reduced side setbacks, for example. And so the only other possible way to have 5-foot setbacks is to go through a PUD, and then after you go through a PUD, apply for a major development order. And so the PUD would really have to be in place to have the reduced side setbacks the way that the county operates now.
And
so,
what prevented you guys from doing that instead of asking for a variance?
well, the development order was already issued, the project was already built.
So it's considered,
The project was built in 2007.
not this portion, but that was part of the original development order.
This portion was built in 2007. The roads, the water, the sewer, the lift stations, all the infrastructure was built in 2007.
Okay.
Yep.
Any questions? We'll give you an opportunity.
What
to
is
come
the,
back.
what is this around it? Whole area there?
It's all golf course.
Golf course?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's wetland preservation as well. And most of the lots have a 25-foot setback from the wetlands, which is the lot line.
Yeah, there's no other houses no houses have been constructed yet.
Actually, there's 4 under construction right now, and they all are using the 7.5-foot side setback. They would like to build the rest of them with the 5 feet, so that it matches everything else out there.
Okay.
Renee?
Good evening, Renee Bradley, Walton County Planning and Development. I'll be glad to answer any questions for the board. We don't have any objections to this. When they came in 2004, they didn't request the setbacks that they should have. And Emerald Bay, when it was approved as a DRI, did not go through the PUD process where they would automatically have these setbacks or request them during that time period. So at the time we did the development order in 2004, we applied standard setbacks to it, which was the 7.5 on the side, 15 foot in the rear, 20 foot in the front. They had a 25-foot buffer in the back of the properties that are adjacent to the wetlands. So we applied strictly the code to this development, even though it was a DRI, because it was not a PUD. When we did the plat, There was still not a request to reduce the setbacks for the development. It was after the plat, and when the developer got ready to build, he realized that he couldn't have his covenants and restrictions on this property. That's when I told them they would have to go through this variance process to change it and request to get their setbacks to meet their covenants.
The developer thought that he could go with the 5 foot that was.
Yes, sir. That was my understanding, that they were, all this time, they thought that they could just build by their covenants.
Because they did in other areas of that.
And that's absolutely true. And we've got a director now, directive from the director that says we do not abide by those covenants, therefore, that there was no way we could let them have the covenants and restrictions.
The only thing that makes this one different than our normal situation is that it's been recorded on a plat.
That's correct, and they will be required, even if they get this variance, they have to amend their development order to reduce those setbacks and come back and replat. So this is not the end of the line for them. They've got further they have to go to do this.
And they've said they've,
We don't have that problem. I mean, normally this is pretty clean, and we're just cleaning up a mess that was created when we, changed the rules, but it's a little weird. We've got a
And-
plat that actually shows it. It's not like someone didn't realize that they were putting it on drawing. It's a little different than the normal.
and I think they represented, they've already started building 4 houses that are what? How many houses are being built in there currently?
I believe there's 4 that have started construction.
And they're being constructed according to the current setbacks.
Yes, sir, 7.5 feet.
Right, but they have a history of development that's grown from the other portion. This is just the last phase to get it
Right.
released. I mean, the infrastructure was already there
Yes.
prior to the change in law.
Mr. Chairman, if I could also mention, for the benefit of the members who haven't been here before with this issue, historically, over a period of years, the county has allowed developments to use their covenants and restrictions as their setbacks. Those setbacks sometimes are not consistent with the county setbacks, and most of the time they're more lenient than the county setbacks. These are private restrictions, the covenants are. They can be changed at any time by the homeowners and so forth, but they do not supersede the county's setbacks. And therefore, a decision was made several years ago that we can no longer issue permits based on covenants and restrictions, and we must apply the county governmental public setbacks. We cannot use the covenants and restrictions, and that's how we've had numerous cases before. The board in the past has granted these. Staff has no objection to those at all. But just for benefit of the background, that's how we're at this position now.
But when they record this subdivision plat, they did attach the restrictions to it.
I think they were showing the setbacks on the plat, and I think Renee had mentioned that a replat would be necessary to change those.
That's correct.
But did they reference the covenants and restrictions when they?
No, they did not.
But since it was part of the same DRI, they were in essence connected to those covenants and restrictions.
Yes, and like Cliff was saying, that particular block does call out those setbacks.
Any questions? Pardon me?
Do they plan to go through the replatting process and all?
Yeah, she said.
Yeah, she said they gotta do
I
that.
mean, they're
Well,
planning.
we're gonna ask.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's Cliff, come on, come.
You
Yes, sir.
intend on going through all these?
Yes, sir. If you guys approve it, we would go through a minor development order process through the county, and then it would be re-advertised for the plating process as well. And so really what it would prevent us from doing is starting all over from ground zero, which, would add probably 8 months to a year by the time we made it to the finish line. And so we would appreciate it, and it would save us an unbelievable amount of time.
I don't think so.
Anybody have any more questions? Thank you. Anyone here that would like to speak in regards to this issue? Motion to close the public discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Bill and Charlie. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion,
I'll make a motion to approve.
second.
I'll second.
Discussion, Charlie?
There's nobody objecting to it. They're surrounded by golf courses. Everybody else in the neighborhood's already going by the covenants anyway. don't have any problems with it.
I agree. Bill?
Aye.
Well, it's not.
Discussion?
Oh,
You want us to discuss? You have anything
that's all
to
my
say?
discussion.
Bill?
No discussion.
It's a little unusual, I think, I said, it's a little unusual in terms of what we're usually seeing, because there's no pattern on this particular portion of it and they platted, but since it's essentially a self-inflicted wound, I think the intent of what we've consistently done as a board remains intact.
Charlie, how do you vote?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I might, if you need a motion to, whenever you make the motion for approval, if that is made, you might make it a conditional condition that they go through the other process, even though they've represented they will. That would be the condition.
We have a motion on the table, we have a second on the table. Bill, do you want to amend your motion?
It would just make it conditional that they have to go through the replatting process.
Is that necessary, staff?
It has to be done, yes.
Okay, yeah, I would amend my motion to include that stipulation.
So if they failed to do that, then the variance
It's
wouldn't,
rescinded.
right.
You got it?
I think so.
You have it? Charlie still second. You second it?
Yeah, sure.
Who second? Tony
I think
second.
it was,
Yeah, Tony second.
okay.
That's an amended motion, we need a second, right?
I second.
Charlie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye? Bill?
Aye.
Bill? Tony? You received your variance request on those lines.
Thank you guys very much for your
Yes.
time.
We have to slow down to share and not begin to make sure we do it. Jasmine Dean, variance. Who's next? State your name, please.
Yes, sir. I'm Mary Elaine Long, LONG. I thank all of you for your time, and I thank you so much for saying a prayer and for all of you leading us in the pledge. That was very refreshing, and I thank you. I'm here on behalf of our Homeowners Association in Jasmine Dune. For the last 26 years, Walton County has allowed our community to use the setbacks that were recorded with our covenants and restrictions and our architectural design code that date back to 1990. And we would just like to ask you all to allow us to continue to use those. We have over 50% of our lots have been developed, and so this not only places all of those current homes in violation of the new setbacks, but it also creates a special hardship for the remaining vacant lot owners, leaving them unable to build on their lots. We do not believe that our proposal would be have any type of a negative effect on the neighborhood or the public welfare. It does not create a use that is not permitted. Existing structures in our neighborhood have been built according to our current codes since 1990. The granting of this variance would be consistent with the existing pattern of development in the neighborhood for the last 26 years. It will not impair the current conditions of the surrounding neighborhood, and it does not give us any special privilege over anyone else. So I don't know if you have any questions.
What is your, tell us what we're doing here. Is on the front is going to say 20?
I beg your pardon?
Will the front setback remain 20 feet?
Well, as a matter of fact, we don't have set setbacks. What our community has, which should be in your information that I sent you, is we have a site plan. And on that site plan, each lot is given a building footprint. And it shows you clearly what they are. I could not recite them, but let's just say, for example, if you have a 20 by 30 or a 30 by 40 building footprint for your house, you cannot build outside of that measurement, but you may shift that measurement north, south, east, or west on your lot as is approved by the Architectural Review Board before you build. And that's what all the existing homes in the neighborhood have gone by since 1990. So
Ma'am,
there
it's your-
are, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we do have setbacks. You can't build corner to corner, but it's hard to tell you all exactly where they are until the plan for the house is approved and the board of the architectural review board approves where it can sit on the lot.
Has there been any measurements drawn on the, I guess, on the site plan to identify, wait a second, I see some, 25
Well,
by,
they need to listen to the county and let them explain it.
okay.
Oh, sure.
Who's here, Ms. Vivian? Explain to us, how do they have no setback?
Oh, man, I knew you were going to leave that to me here. They do have, if you have been able to locate your Appendix A that is in the staff report. I did try to color code, tab all of these exhibits, but then the copier cut them off, so it didn't help too much. It is towards the very back of your packet.
It's Exhibit A, did you say?
Exhibit E.
E.
It is called Appendix A. It's Exhibit E.
Gotcha.
And it is right before the photographs start.
Come this way. Quite a bit.
There's the plat, and then there's the Exhibit E.
I see Exhibit E. That's the one with the houses on it.
Yeah, it has basically, it's coded according to the design
Is this
code.
what you're talking about? Exhibit E?
Yes, Exhibit E.
Okay.
Yes.
Everybody has that?
Yeah, my E's. Like that.
We got different Exhibit E's.
Yeah.
Maybe in a different exhibit. Go to the exhibit.
What are we on, number 5?
No, yours is wrong, I mean,
You have E?
There should be,
Yeah.
I got it.
I was in 5.
Well, that's there.
Go right before your picture.
Okay, there's another E.
Okay.
That's a different E.
We all on the same page.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Did I give you
on the same page.
I got it, thanks.
So it's some of them are spelled out. It looks like the odd shaped lots are. The other ones just identified lot B3 being 26 by 58.
That's the size of the house.
Buildable area, right. Yeah, it appears they've got it coded by buildable area, the building footprint. You can't go beyond that building footprint, I'm assuming. But as far as, I don't see anything that mentions about the setback from the front. It's kind of done a different way. This is not uncommon for some of the newer developments to have it coded this way.
But all they have is like lot B5, your structure can be 25 by 60, less than that, and no greater than that.
Correct.
The county approved this, is that correct? And when was it recorded? 1990. That was prior to the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
And if it's prior to the comprehensive plan, what's the language on that? Excuse me? If it's prior to 1994, then...
November 7th, 1996.
Right, this is one that you
Yes.
don't like to use the language grandfathered in, and that's why she's here for us to clean this up.
That's
Yes.
correct, yes, sir.
Yeah, this one is a little bit different. You can look at the architectural code is the previous exhibit, and it is actually on page, I think it was 7. Let's see. Lost my dog ear here. Page 7 of the Architectural Design Code of Jasmine Dune, which is the document right prior to Exhibit or Appendix A, Exhibit E. So if you just back up to page 7 of the Architectural Design Code.
But it still doesn't list any footage. It doesn't list the footage.
No, but it doesn't, but it has each of the sites as they're labeled, and it's where it refers to Appendix A of the site, for the site plan. It's
you have no objection to this, right?
No, this is,
The staff has no, this is one of those we clean them up to make sure they never have any problems.
it is, and it's, you can see by the pictures that they did a very good job of providing that is the design of the subdivision. It's, and to put standard county setbacks on it would make the others look like oddities, or they would look like oddities themselves.
Again, it's prior to 1994, and they should be given some consideration as far as that plat being recorded and accepted in 1990. I agree with
Yeah,
that.
there is no development order. That's what we always try to do, is find a development order that defined setbacks or how they were allowed to be arranged, but there was not. We do, the very last page is the certificate of zoning compliance that was done in 1990 by the Cheryl Williams, who signed off on it by the department. So
It'll be a long time ago.
I've got a question. If we reduce these to 0 setbacks, and then the association goes back and modifies this architectural,
We're not,
I'm allowed to ask a question. I'm just asking
Well,
staff.
I'm
The
we're not dropping it to 0 setbacks. We're going to drop it to the adoption of this.
well, the request, if it shows a 0 setback, is what they're
Well,
requesting.
she said she wanted to be what is already there, that is off this plat.
So what are the setback numbers?
There can be 0 setbacks at this time, just depending on how they position the building footprint.
But it's already designed.
Yeah, I think maybe if you want to say that Appendix A cannot be changed in the future, if we want to memorialize that that's the way that they're.
But if that's done,
going
then
to-
they would not be allowed to move the position of the buildings either. So that's another concern. I mean, from a legal perspective, and for the board's sake, you have criteria, obviously. The issue that you're going to have is if you agree to this variance, it'll be a 0 setback, which would allow them to maneuver these lots. If they go back and change this, which would be internally, not through the county, but through their association, they could allow 0 setbacks. They would be allowed to build up into the property line.
How many new homes are we looking at being built in here?
There are just a little over 50% built out. How many lots? A couple of the lots have actually been combined as well.
We have combined 3, actually 6 lots into 3, so.
Mr. Bias, it is my belief that when they present this subdivision that has been recorded, that shows that there is space around the lots, that it wouldn't change from that. Even though it's not specified, it would look like that. Is that your belief?
I believe so, Mr. Chairman. I think what we're missing here is a little bit, as I think that is part of their covenants and restrictions. That site plan, I believe, is part of their covenants and restrictions.
It's part of the architectural
Right.
design
The site
code.
plan, the subdivision plat approved by the county does not show that.
Well, where's the one by the county?
It's in your packet.
It is.
This is the one that.
It is Exhibit F in your.
Oh,
Is that it?
right before this.
Wait a second, maybe a different exhibit.
I've got one that's Exhibit G, but
Well, this is a copy of the plat.
Yeah, I think a copy of the plat's in Exhibit F, and you can see on Exhibit F, there are no, those building footprints are not there, and that's part of the issue here, is that, the county approved this, but did not approve the covenants and restrictions. Those were recorded as normal, but we didn't, as far as I think our research indicates, county did not approve the building configuration. I don't think staff has any issue with that. I think the problem tonight, if I'm reading Mr. Dykes, is that we don't have those definitive setback variance requests per lot. Is that?
yeah, I mean, my concern is if you give a blanket variance to a 0 setback, they could essentially if the HOA decided to go back and change this, the way they have the ability and authority to change any of their covenants, this was part of their covenants, and they said, hey, we want to be allowed to build to our lot lines, and you've allowed this variance. They will not have to come back to the county to get approval of that. They'll be allowed to build it.
Even though they have, like,
Right, this can be changed is what I'm saying. Just like they can say, we allow pools today, but next week we change our covenants to say no more pools are allowed to be built within.
So what you're saying is that these drawings here,
Could be modified by the
because
association.
it's not part of the recorded plat.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, we ran into this before, and that was exactly my concern, is that these associations would be able to change their own guidelines without any process. What we did in previous situations was that we adopted, we accepted the request for the variance based on the recorded documents as they were, and that did not permit them to change that at that point.
But
because
this
we
is
were-
not recorded.
Well,
It
as it exists now.
That's recorded as part of the covenants and restrictions,
That's right.
not the plat.
Not the plat. It is
Right.
recorded.
But according to our attorney, this can be changed by the homeowner association.
It can be changed by homeowner association.
What we would do is we would grant a variance or not grant a variance based on them as they exist now, and that would not allow them to change.
This
them.
drawing,
Correct.
the restrictions.
Correct. That's
All
part of
the
their
restrictions.
That would work,
restriction.
wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, there's different ways to skin the cat. You can either look to do a conditional variance, but what would likely be the better, in my opinion, the better way to handle it is to take it on a case-by-case basis. When they're seeking to develop the lot, they bring that in and they can show you exactly what they plan to build versus, because if you do what Mr. Valet's suggesting, then what you're gonna have is you're gonna have people coming in asking for variances anyway, because they're gonna be required to build within these little squares. And if they wanna build or jog their house one way or the other, then they're gonna have to come in and ask for a variance again.
Let's talk about that for a second. Where in their documents does it say that the Architecture Review Board has the ability to adjust the location?
I haven't read through that, Vivian may have. I have one comment. We do have, the problem I think we have here, we have homes that have already been built and homes that have not been built. The homes that have been built are potentially could be non-conforming with all the barriers that come to that, and if it's caught when it's sold, there could be issues with that. That's one of the things I think we have concerns as well. Although we have allowed it to happen over the years, I have a concern that we have homes that have been permitted that are not in conformance with the county setbacks.
But they could come in and ask for a variance, could they not?
They could, yes.
You got 50-something people, and if we, matter of fact, if we do not grant this tonight, they need to be sent a letter that they are out of conformance, and they're gonna have to get a survey to prove that, how much they're gonna ask for.
Well, it would matter when it was developed, because if they were grandfathered in
They're
based
not
on the time.
grandfathered in, he just said that, they're not grandfathered in, there's no grandfather in.
If they were, okay.
I think one of the things to take into consideration is to how we approach this is that the county has recommended that they come in to do a variance for the whole subdivision versus a single variance request, because it's much more efficient for the subdivision, and if we can figure out a way to.
And the code does, I think, code does authorize this. One thing we might want to, just a suggestion, if the board's in agreement, approve the plan showing the footprints, and any change from that would have to come back in front of the board again. So if the HOA wanted to change it, they couldn't change it at their will. They had to come back in front of the board to change anything. That's one way to handle it potentially.
That's what we're gonna do. Thank you, Ben.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Just, but would you allow that anyone who wanted to build smaller than the footprint, they could do that without a variance?
Absolutely.
Just, you can, okay, that was just the question.
Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I think you have everything.
Does anyone have any?
Does anybody have a question for me?
No.
No? Okay.
Anyone else would like to add to the discussion? Motion to close to the public.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve it. With conditions.
I would make that motion. Somebody tell me what the conditions are.
Conditions are to approve the variance request as presented with the stipulation that the restriction and covenants shall not be modified.
I think that would be a legal motion. You can't force the HOA not to modify their covenants.
I'm trying to do what the director asked us to do.
I understand.
Your job to determine.
I'm trying to help craft the motion, so.
Would it be safe for Mr. Dykes if we outline an exhibit that was been presented tonight, the exhibit showing the building footprint, would that be?
Yeah, I think the motion would be that it's a conditional variance based only upon the Appendix A site plan of the Architectural Review Committee. If there's any changes to it, then that would go outside of the variance request. What I'm saying is if you did a carte blanche, you can't amend your documents. I mean, they could maybe want to amend certain things and they would be allowed to do it. So I think
it appears to me that the document contains a lot of language that I think should be in the variance request. I think that when you look at the exhibit that she pointed out, over to what page was that?
7.
Yeah, 7. And if they're willing for us to do that, if they're not, that would restrict them from changing anything that would alter it whatsoever. And to me, to have a little bit more than what we have would be a plus to it.
As long as the petitioner can bind the associate, because that's what they're doing. They're binding all the property owners to that condition. So as long as they have the authority to do that, I don't have a problem with that being the motion. But they're going to have to represent that they have that authority.
They're here representing that tonight.
That you have the authority to bind all the owners within the subdivision to that restriction if they decide to vote that.
I think it would work better. I have no objection to what you're saying. I think it would accommodate this development. But if it was worded where the building footprints could not be increased, or the visual setbacks could not be reduced, if that be a stipulation. In other words, we don't want to restrict people to build the exact size of the building footprint.
I don't think anybody's suggesting that. You could build to that as a max, but you could also build smaller. I don't know that anybody's suggesting that you have to build that size building.
Now, on the combined lots, the Architectural Review Board is not letting them build any larger than both footprints of the two.
They have combined lots now.
I know. Well, I mean, that throws a wrinkle in it. So, for the record, what's your name, and just so we have it for the record?
Okay, I'm Les Sigelman.
We're gonna withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Withdraw the second.
And
Who's second? Withdraw.
Charlie did. I think.
We're gonna open it back up for discussion.
I'll withdraw my second.
All right, now come to the podium and say what you want to say.
Okay.
You come on up, sir. Come on up. Say what you got to say, because we're fixing to conclude.
So would it be agreeable to just say that you cannot go past the building footprint that's on Appendix A?
That's what we was trying to do.
Yeah, that's what we
was also trying to take in to clarify that the restrictions that are of record, that you abide by, that y'all agree to, that you come before us tonight and say, this is why we do this. We were trying to incorporate that into the variance to tie y'all to it. So you can't go and change your covenants.
Right, no, anybody that wanted to go out that would have to get their own variance, yeah.
And y'all have no problem with that?
No, sir.
None
Okay.
at all.
You got anything else?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I do. From a legal perspective, as I said earlier, we can't suggest that they can't modify or change any of their covenants. I think
When it comes to the building,
I think the wording could be done though to say that the variance is based on this version. That doesn't mean that they can't change it, but
Right.
anything that has to do with the building footprint would be locked
Right.
to this date, certain document.
and you say document as a whole, all the covenants and restrictions, or are you saying as Appendix A?
No, as a whole, which includes the architectural review process, which allows them some latitude there, but tying it to this one, which means for the
What
second, they would change theirs
right.
for other purposes.
What I'm getting at is, if they decide to change it, you could have a legal issue, and it may not be tomorrow, and it may not be next week, could be years from now, where they say, look, we always have the authority to amend our documents, and variance be damned, we're going to amend our documents to allow us to build a certain way. So I don't know that
would they be in violation of the variance?
that would be the argument from the county. Now, whether or not a court would uphold that is what I'm getting at. I don't know
That's
that.
just like any variance that we grant. If we grant a variance and somebody says that, be dang it, we're gonna do it anyway, that's what code enforcement. This is a document to enforce what we're trying to do here.
I'm just letting you know from a legal perspective that could be
Your
a.
legal advice has been so noted. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
close discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion.
Tony, make the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve based on the documents dated someone give me a date on that one. There it is. 7th of June, 1990,
Do the or different page.
with reference to the
Exhibit E, isn't it?
I would do the OR different page beginning with, OR foot 682, page 201.
On the very front page, under the history of the staff report, has both of those dates.
Okay, thank you. For the Jasmine Dune Declaration dated 7th June 1990. Can you give me that page again? Sorry.
OR 60682,
OR 0682,
page 201.
page 201.
Last page is 246.
Last page is 246.
That's the motion.
With reference to the siting of buildings,
Exhibit E.
Appendix A. With,
We need to,
did you get the date and the page information? With reference to the placement of building with, building footprints? And Exhibit E also refers to other documents as Appendix A.
And they can build smaller. You want to stick that on
second.
Do you want to put on there that they can build smaller?
Do we need to do that? I don't think so. I think
Charlie asked, I thought I asked.
I think that's in there.
We don't think it's necessary.
Excuse me?
No, as long as they're not building
Yeah.
over
That-
the zero.
That is your motion.
It is.
That is, you second
I
it?
second.
Bill second it. Discussion? Charlie?
it? We've discussed all we're going to discuss.
Tommy, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 You received your variance request for the subdivision. We thank you for coming.
Nothing to it.
Ask Vivian, she's so ready for me to be done with this, so she can be done with me.
We have some minutes from the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to read them? Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Who made the motion?
Bill made the motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Tony? Bill?
Aye.
Meeting December the 14th.
14, 16.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
December 14th, Joe? Is that-
Hey, you need this, let me give you this binder. Stuff out.
Need my pen.
Yes, sir.
I believe that. Can't sign those.
I'll walk out with it.
Almost got it.